Welcome to this session of the literacy series that takes place at the University of Tennessee. My name is Zoi Traga-Philippakos, and today's session focuses on interactive and dialogic reading. A few things about me so that I can introduce myself to you. I'm originally from Greece. I'm actually from Sparta, Greece. That's where I completed my first studies. And then I came to the United States and I completed a master's in reading. I worked as a classroom teacher. I completed my doctorate degree and then later a postdoc. And after traveling in different universities, I am now at the University of Tennessee that I call home for the past 2 years. And this work that I'm presenting to you is also part of the literacy series that we have, and it is connected with our literacy specialist program. We are holding these sessions every second Tuesday, third Tuesday, and fourth Tuesday of every month. So we have 3 sessions every month. For January, February, and March. At the very end of the session, I will share with you what exactly we will be presenting in April in case you are interested and you wish to attend. So during this session, I'm gonna comment on interactive and dialogic reading. So the goal of our meeting today is to discuss emergent literacy and what does it mean to work and read to emergent readers. I will explain dialogic reading and how it is different from interactive read alouds and interactive reading, and then conclude with some recommendations of how it can be applied when you're working in a classroom and when you're a parent working and reading with your child at home. So when we're thinking of early literacy, we're thinking of our language and vocabulary. We're thinking of concepts about print, and I'm referring to directionality, understanding what is a letter, what is a period, what is a question mark within text, what is text, what is read. Alphabet knowledge, and again, this refers to letter names, letter sounds, phonological, phonemic awareness, which are essential in beginning reading. In writing, which is often neglected, and in May we will have the month devoted to writing actually, and listening comprehension. So these are compose early literacy. Now, who are the emergent readers? You may have students who are learning all these components of reading. You may have newcomers, newcoming English language learners who are still developing their alphabet knowledge, and they are developing their comprehension on the language that they're learning. However, when we're thinking about emergent readers, I want you to be thinking typically developing pre-K and kindergarten students. Studies that have examined the specific approaches that I'll share, they have been also with students in other grades who may lack that language capacity. So when we're thinking of literacy development, I want you to be thinking of a diet. So a healthy literacy diet that is for early, for beginning reading, will include foundational skills, vocabulary knowledge, very rich. It will be very rich in oral language, and it will also incorporate writing, because we do know that the relationship between decoding and encoding is essential. So when we think of the cognitive model, and I'm referring to the cognitive model, and it's something that we have been referring to across all the sessions that we had so far. When we look at the cognitive model, we know that the ultimate goal of reading is reading comprehension. And to achieve that, we will need to have automatic word recognition, language comprehension, strategic knowledge. For the language comprehension component, we know that the understanding of words, the vocabulary, is essential, as well as background knowledge about the topic and about a specific concept. Now, of course, knowledge of text structures as well as sentence structures is important, because if someone is more familiar with a specific type of writing, may find difficult following the information that's presented in another one, or even being able to retrieve the gist of what was read. But when we're looking at vocabulary and background knowledge, these are essential in supporting students' comprehension. So when you're thinking of this, you know that vocabulary is essential. If I don't understand a word, I will not be able to make meaning. Through reading now, students expand their vocabulary. And you may be wondering, how is this possible since they don't know how to read yet? If they're emergent readers, they have not broken the code, they're not able yet. That is true. However, they can expand on their vocabulary through read alouds, because read alouds can assist in this language and vocabulary development and growth. So why read alouds? When we're working with read alouds, the teacher is the one who does the decoding. So students do not need to read because there is the adult who is reading. Also, the words that they will be encountered, they will be rare. So it's more likely that they will see the word fortunate in text than hear it in oral language. They may hear lucky, which is a simplified, a child-friendly definition, if I can use that term. The student engagement is very likely to happen when you have the read aloud, because the children are engaging with the reader, and the words that the children are learning can be reinforced in other contexts. And I'm referring to other readings, as well as throughout the day, or throughout the day if a parent is reading, throughout their day, or if it's a teacher, throughout the instructional day, across other contexts, not just during the specific reading time. Now, this one-on-one reading that can take place at home with parents can take the form of dialogic. So when you're thinking of this type of reading, when we are thinking of emergent reading, we will have interactive read alouds and we'll have dialogic reading. So in the interactive read aloud, the teacher will read from a regular size book, right? And she will control, or he will control, most of the talk. In the case of an interactive read aloud, the teacher will explain the story, will explain the concepts of that book, depending on what type of book is read. The teacher will have opportunities to think aloud, explain strategies, problem solve for meaning making, and the teacher will ask questions to students. For example, if I was to read this book, I have the Giggle, Giggle, Quack. I will say that I will be reading today this book. The book is called Giggle, Giggle, Quack. That's the title, and it's written by Doreen Cronin. And who is that is the author, is the person that wrote the words, and the pictures are drawn by Betsy Lewin, who is the illustrator. Very good. So when good readers read, they make predictions. That means that they make an educated guess of what is going to happen. This educated guess means that they will use clues in order to make that guess. So in order to make this guess, educated guess, they will use the title, they will use the pictures, and they will draw from their knowledge everything they know, and from memory everything they know about the title and the picture. So I see the picture of a duck, and that has a pencil in its beak, and I see other animals laughing, and it says giggle, giggle, quack. So I think it's gonna be a funny story, maybe something that the duck is gonna do, and the duck will be quacking and laughing. So I'm gonna begin reading now. So as a teacher, I presented the strategy and I explained the strategy. However, I didn't engage in necessarily in a dialogue with our students. I could ask my students questions. What do you think will happen based on this information I have, and based these clues that the author gave me and that I know I need to use as a reader in order to make an educated guess. When I am working now into dialogic reading, the teacher will not necessarily use a regular size book. The teacher can use a regular size book, but the teacher can use one of these big books. And that way, children in the classroom will see. And as they do that, the teacher will be asking questions about the pictures and about the information that's presented, and the students can do the same. So the students can initiate actually the conversation and the questions. So in the case, and I'm going to show you another book just to make sure that I'm not showing just fiction, but you can be using nonfiction text. This, for example, is Firehouse, and it is an alphabet book. It's an alphabet big book where the pictures are real. They're not drawings, and that can initiate more questions from the students too. generate more questions. So in the case of dialogic reading, the goal is conversation, and the teacher and the reader, the parent even, because that is something that parents can do, and that's an excellent strategy for parents to apply at home with their learners and their beginning readers. There is a set of prompts that they are asked so that the students can be engaged and respond, and then also initiate questions and conversation themselves. So the way that this works with the prompts are completion. In the case of a completion, the students will complete the sentence or complete the phrase that is part of the reading. So in this book, So What's Like to Be a Cat, the reading will be, so what's like to be a cat? I'm very glad you asked me that. The day begins for cats like me as all the world sleeps quietly. So if I do this reading once and I'll go the next time to reread, it's very likely the students will remember, and then they will be using the same terms, the same phrases, and that is part of the completion. Recall is when we have completed the reading, and then I will be asking you at the very end, so what happened so far? Or I will be asking as I go, what is it that we read so far? What happened so far? What did the character do? What did the boy find out about the cat? Open-ended is gonna be questions that the teacher or the reader will ask about the text that is read. WH are the questions that will help the learner better understand and expand basic vocabulary. So these will be the WH questions like, what is this? And where does it live? Oh, it is a cow. Where will you find a cow? It will be in a farm. What else you may find in a farm? So you are asking these WH questions and giving to the reader the opportunity, the learner, the listener, the opportunity to respond and expand their knowledge of what lives, in this case, in the farm. Distancing is when you will be asking questions to the learners that are further after the completion of the text, and it relates to their own experiences. Have you ever been in a farm? What have you seen in a farm? When did you go? So that may be an expanded type of question outside of the book. Now, in this process of asking the prompts, it's not just the goal to ask the questions. The goal is to evaluate the responses. So if the student says, that's a cow, the teacher or the reader will say, yes, that is a cow. And then I will expand the response. And maybe I will add information. Yes, a cow lives in a farm. And then I will repeat the prompt. So this is a cow that lives in a farm. And then I will continue with another question of what is this? Oh, this is an apple. That is a tree. Apples will be found also in farms. There are farms that produce apples. So it will be a constant conversation. The next time when we revisit the book, the child will be the one who will be telling what everything is, because I will be asking what each one of these items is and what's their utility and what's their function. So I showed you this process because this is the peer plus crowd developed by Lonergan, Whitehurst and Lonergan and Whitehurst in 1998, but it has been studied extensively in different studies and in different contexts. So the peer is when there is the prompt, and then this prompt will take the form of crowd. So the prompt will be completion, recall, open-ended, WH, and distancing. And then after it will be during this process of the prompt, there will be the evaluation of the response, the expansion and addition, and then repetition. So this is like an opportunity for the learner to engage into the reading, but also to initiate questions and be, in other words, engaged. So what are the differences? In the case of the interactive read aloud, I will be explaining concepts, I will be developing the questions. But when I'm working on dialogic reading and I'm engaged with a learner, the learner will be asking questions. So it's reversed the process, because the child can initiate the question. The child can say that I've been in a farm and oh, look, there is a sheep. There are sheep, they have very soft fur. Oh yes, that is wool. So there can be a conversation initiated with a child that can help them move from a phrase to a sentence. And then when the teacher is paraphrasing and adding, the child can be repeating, and that way their syntax and their syntactic expression overall can change. So overall, the goal is explanations, it's expansion of vocabulary, and that's why we're using the 5 prompts. So the question may be, what books can we use for this and in this process? You may be thinking, oh, fictional text, fiction will work well. It will, but also informational text, because children really are excited with informational text and with real things. And also the more, sometimes I don't want to say gross, but sometimes they will love spiders, they will love bats, they will love everything that has to do, at least that's my experience so far, with nature. So and how things work, and airplanes, and skyscrapers and fire trucks, everything about trucks. They will be excited to learn information. So it's not just fiction. And in the case actually of real pictures, they will see a dolphin, and then you can discuss that the dolphin lives in the ocean and what the dolphin will eat, and then that the dolphin is a mammal. And having done this type of conversation, when you will move later to discuss about whales, they will be able to transfer information, and they will be able to use the concepts that they have developed and vocabulary that they have already developed. Now, the question may be also, should we repeat reading the books? Shall we read the same book more than once? Sure. And actually, I think that it does great benefit to children to read the same book more than once, but also it gives the chance to expand and address more of these prompts. So this is a sample of a sequence for, actually it's part of a project that I'm working on now with some of my colleagues, where we are suggesting to do repeat the reading that the teachers are using during the whole group instruction in small group after the small intervention that is provided, where again, the teacher starts with open-ended and WH prompts. That will be the day one. The second one will be adding open-ended WH and completion. The third day, there will be open-ended WH, completion and recall. What happened so far? What have we read? Open-ended WH, completion, recall, and distancing. And at the very end, it will be recall and distancing. And you may be wondering why I'm incorporating recall throughout. That's because I am trying to help them see that you don't wait until the end to stop and think what you learned so far. So I'm trying to incorporate a bit this idea of questioning, monitoring, repredicting. In other words, stop, think what you learned so far, and then based on that information, proceed your reading, but keep actively, keep on considering the context and what the information you're acquiring through your reading. So can I work with story grammar? And that's where I'm referring. Yes, that's the part of our intervention, the work that we are designing, where we are teaching. We have already discussed the story grammar. We have explained how stories work. And then as we go and we do engage in conversation, we also engage on who are the characters in this story and what did we learn so far about these characters. So I'm asking all these questions that have to do that are part of the dialogic reading within the context of developing an understanding of how stories are structured. And then that allows me to also support further recall, because then the recall is going to be based on the elements of a story when I know that the story consists of beginning, middle, and end. And then if I'm going to retell something, I'm going to say that this story is about a character who does this, and then that happens, creates a problem, and so the character does this, then something else. So there is a sequence, a progression of tasks. And then at the end, I have the solution. Also, the same can be procedural. So I can be reading, and at the same time, I can be examining the steps. So what happened so far? What are the steps that that are needed in order to complete X task? Let's say the students are reading a book about how to fish. So we are expanding the vocabulary and understanding the utility of the different items that are needed in order to fish, but at the same time, we can examine the steps and the progression of steps in order to properly fish. So when we're thinking of dialogic reading, and overall, when we're thinking of emergent readers, what is the goal? The goal is conversation. The goal is for the student, the learner, not to just be a listener, but also be the one who is asking the questions, the one who is engaged in this conversation. And the goal is language development. And again, I will say it again and again, it's conversation. It is not one way. It can't be a monologue. And it's not just a presentation to the child. It's much more showing the love for reading, and that process will motivate them to see that there is a purpose and there is engagement in the process of reading. I am learning information, but I am also initiating this learning, and I am having this learning opportunity that I'm creating myself. So it's not unlikely that you'll see children questioning and then making connections as they go with similar content. So you may see them moving from whales to dolphins or vice versa, and carrying information and language from one context to the other. And again, vocabulary is essential for them to understand nonfiction. So I will read this segment to you, which is from Whitehurst. I can share the link at the very end. It is from Reading Rockets, and it states, dialogic reading works. Children who have been read to dialogically are substantially ahead of children who have been read to traditionally on tests of language development. Children can jump ahead by several months in just a few weeks of dialogic reading. So the goal, again, it is to engage in language, support students in stating, understanding a concept, expanding on that concept, and making connections. So I will now, before I will stop the video and discuss your questions, I will share what's the next set of our literacy series. So for April, we'll be discussing vocabulary and comprehension. We will have reading strategies for social studies and math by Dr. Bozakis, and the audience will be teachers. We'll have tiers of words and morphology, and I will be presenting that again for teachers. And we will have active engagement with vocabulary by Dr. Bramo, and the audience will be parents and teachers. So I would like to thank you again for joining me today, and I will stop so we can discuss your questions.